Hello everybody, welcome back to our plenary session. So I hope you've all been having a good day. Some fantastic workshops going on, which I've been part of, and hopefully you've been part of too, and hopefully you've managed to do lots of networking. So this is our final closing plenary session. And it's a brilliant one. It's the one that often people talk about at the end of conventions for the last few years, and it's our TED style talks, and we've got a great run through. We're really grateful to the Virgin Money Foundation for supporting the TED Talks plenary. And first of all, before we kick off, we've got a message from Nancy Doyle Hall, who's the Executive Director at the Virgin Money Foundation.
Welcome to the final plenary of the conference. I am Nancy Doyle Hall, I lead the Virgin Money Foundation, and we are delighted to be supporting the TED Talk segment of the convention. In this session, you will hear from 4 speakers who, through their work, are unleashing the power of community. Their work is inspiring, and as you prepare to leave the conference and head back into your daily lives, we wanted you to go back with fresh ideas and determination to take with you. Community organisations like yours, rooted in their neighbourhood, have a vital role to play in society. They are agents of change, and the people who are there through ever-changing circumstances, giving local people a voice and an opportunity to shape their community into a place where everyone can thrive. We hope that the conference has inspired you to keep going, to keep supporting your community to thrive. On that note, sit back, enjoy 4 fantastic talks that we have no doubt will take the inspiration to a new level.
Thanks so much for that support, Nancy, and we're really grateful to the foundation. Now, it's my real pleasure to introduce the host and our first speaker for this plenary session. It's Ruth Ibegbuna, who is somebody we've been trying to get to speak at convention for a couple of years, and delighted we've managed to make it work. So Ruth is going to chair this session and also talk to us, and she's going to be the MC for the remainder of the session. So some of you will undoubtedly know Ruth. Ruth, after a successful teaching career in state schools in Bradford and Manchester, founded Reclaim, which was a Manchester-based charity supporting working-class young people into leadership positions. Ruth used her platform at Reclaim for 11 years to campaign nationally with young people in their communities for greater levels of equality and to remove the stigma faced by many disadvantaged communities. She was named by Virgin as one of the top 6 women change makers globally and is an Ashoka Fellow. She's the founder of the Roots programme, an initiative to bring influencers from vastly different communities together to learn from each other and increase levels of compassion in our leaders. She's also the founder of Rekindle, a new supplementary school opening in September 2021 in South Manchester, focused around providing a soulful education to young, defiant, critical thinkers. So an amazing CV, an amazing person. Over to you, Ruth.
Well, thank you very much. It's lovely to hear, actually. It gives me a bit of confidence before I start speaking. Hi to everyone who's out there, whoever you may be. I've been looking through and watching the tweets, and it seems like it's been a fairly incredible couple of days. I'm really honoured to have this slot and to be speaking, and I'm really excited to be welcoming some brilliant speakers on later. You'll get the opportunity to ask us questions. We're going to have a Q&A. So I know that later on the chat function is going to be used for you to pose questions for us. So that's great. So when I heard about the title of this, I was like, oh, Unleashing the Power of Communities. And to me, it's a fairly obvious one because that's what my work's always been around, about how do you get communities to feel that they're powerful and that they're creative spaces and that people feel confident in them. And then I started overlaying that with thinking about 2020 and thinking about some of the challenges that we've faced as a country. And usually when I give talks at events, you know, I'm quite an upbeat, chipper, positive person, and my talks tend to reflect that. And then last night I'd written what I was going to say today, and I was really working it through. And then I thought about, actually, there's something a bit more profound about this year. 2020 has been a time of real change, a time of really stepping back and examining how things have changed. And then I thought about what I was about to say to you all that could be in any way useful for anyone. And I decided to really shift what I was going to say. And so instead, what I'm going to talk about is a little bit more personal and probably not quite as cheery, although it gets cheerier at the end, a couple of jokes in at the end. But it's real and authentic, and it's how I feel about community and community power and what I've learned from this year. So I'm the kind of person that, as you've heard from my bio, I've spent my professional career working with working class communities and with young people, and encouraging people to feel more confident about who they are and having the right to be kind of seen and heard. I started the charity Reclaim, which is all about working class young people step into leadership positions and demanding better for themselves with confidence and pushing through that imposter syndrome. Then Brexit happened, and well, we all hated each other, and so started a program that was much more about how do we better connect communities? How do we learn to have a reasonable dialogue with people who don't share our opinions on a range of topics? How do we walk in each other's shoes, basically, and learn from each other? And that's a cultural exchange program that's still going on now. And this summer, I spent a lot of my time working on Rekindle with an incredible bunch of young people from South Manchester who are building their own school. They're all 17 to 23 years old, and they're building a school that's going to be based around critical thinking and a cultural education. They've completely and totally inspired me. So I'm part of all these different communities, and I'm also a kind of professional northerner. Someone said to me recently that I'm second only to Andy Burnham in the professional northerner stakes. I like to think of myself as suitably disruptive, as I think everyone good in the sector should be, and I like to challenge and champion those people who are out of the spotlight or feel that they're not getting their fair share. So in many ways, I'm exactly the kind of person that would be chosen for this slot in the Locality final stage of the conference. I'm kind of grassroots, I'm connected, I'm outside of London, I'm known in the sector. I get to speak at a lot of social sector events. But this year, something's happened that's changed completely how I view communities and maybe how I view myself as a professional. After taking a decision to step down after several years of being really, really comfortable in a charity that I loved, I decided to adopt a baby girl. And this was a huge decision. And I decided, therefore, to step away and to give her my full attention. So I had a year of being with her and enjoying that time. It was really special. And then it was time to get back to work, and I decided to go for one of those famed portfolio careers, put her in nursery. Loads of contracts came in. I had loads of interesting work, training, delivering, speaking, all around issues of social justice. Well done me. I'd finally achieved everything. I had it all. And while I was enjoying those first few weeks in that new situation, word started spreading across the world of this new disease, COVID. I watched with horror what was happening in Italy, and I didn't quite make the connection to what impact it could possibly have on us here in the UK. And then March arrived, and it was stay at home, don't work, save lives, clap for the NHS. And it was only then the enormity of my situation hit me. I was no longer in stable employment. I hadn't been a freelancer long enough for me to qualify for any of the furlough schemes or any of the government help. And all of a sudden I was a single mum with a dependent. I'd wasted all my savings on ridiculously indulgent ways of spoiling a new baby. And for the first time, I was in a precarious situation. And this was something that completely threw me at my core, because I'm someone who's out there championing communities that might be struggling. And then all of a sudden, within, I think, a 2-week period, 6 months of work fell from my diary and was cancelled. Everything was cancelled or pushed back a year. And in the scheme of what was going on in the country, this is not that important, but in the microcosm of my world, in my house, this was catastrophic. I had no savings and all the work had gone. And so within a couple of weeks, I'd gone from the kind of CEO status to an applicant for universal credit. And it was bewildering, and it was shocking, and it was terrifying. But what was surreal at the same time was that the social sector was doing a lot of projecting, a lot of discussion about what a new normal would look like, how communities could build back better. And I'm someone who's always had a lot to say on these issues. So the phone was going constantly with people asking me my views in terms of what would society look like after post-pandemic, what kind of UK would emerge blinking from what had happened. And for the first time, I found that I just had no ideas. I had no innovation. I didn't feel disruptive. For the first time, I was battling with a benefit system. That's not me. I'd never known how to work that. And I was adding up my totals of weekly spend. I'd moved from being us, probably a lot of people on this call, to being them. I was a service user or a beneficiary. And I didn't care about some of the big issues in the way that I had before. I didn't watch Question Time. I stopped tweeting about social justice issues. Survival mode kicked in, and there was no headspace for anything else, really. I had like an absolute laser focus on survival mode. Everything else just felt like indulgent nonsense for others to worry about. I was less interested in what the BBC thought about things, and when they called me and Radio 5 wanted me to talk about the impact of COVID on young people, I had nothing to say. I didn't want to do a Guardian think piece in terms of what the effects of COVID would be on the mental health of the Black community, because for once it felt very personal. It felt like I was going through something. And as a leader who, you know, we all talk about lived experience. When you get lived experience that you're not expecting, it can feel very raw and very difficult. And you can feel very, very dislocated from some of the conversations that go on in leadership spaces. All I was bothered about was feeding my child and making sure my mortgage was covered. So what brought me back? Community, the power of community. It was the neighbours who checked in on me. It was the people I didn't know very well who heard that I was going through a tough time and brought round Lidl vouchers to ensure that I could do my weekly shop. It was the professional friends who offered me pieces of work, work that I don't even think they needed doing, but they were trying to help out. It was the people who called, not texted, the people who called and had those conversations to ensure that we didn't feel isolated and felt supported. It was the community surrounding me, surrounding my daughter, and ensuring that in the same way that we have seen, we were looked after and the pandemic felt just a little less bruising than it needed to. But it also made me reflect as a leader in terms of how I'd maybe misunderstood when other people hadn't engaged in my projects or hadn't engaged in my campaigns in a way that I would have hoped. Because now I understood that when these crises happen, or when you are in absolute terror and panic and fear are your kind of guiding emotions, the bigger picture stuff just falls out of the way. I didn't care what Trump was saying to Biden. All the things that before I would have felt really, really strongly about just were not important in any single way to me. But the power of community had been unleashed, and I felt it, and I felt warmed by it, and I felt cheered by it, and it kept us, held us tight. And I hope for one that when we do build back better, people like me who might pontificate on the new normal look at the power that's been there in the community and those people, those grassroots people, those delivery drivers who've kept things going, and we offer better, more authentic support to them. Because for me, I feel now that I want to spend less time in kind of professional leadership spaces and more time supporting grassroots community organisations that need my kind of skills and my networks and need access, support, funding, all those things. So that's one pledge that I've made to myself as my life begins to rebuild. I'm also deciding that rolling news is not the most healthy way to keep anyone's mental health and sanity. So I'm going to focus on kind of the people next door rather than the people on screen or the people in my Twitter feed. But the final thing I wanted to say is that I see the power of community as hopefully all of us recognising that we can be, if you think about the Emperor's New Clothes, you know, what I love about Disruption is that little boy pointing out the leader, the naked man at the top, and speaking the truth about leadership and having the courage to do that. And I hope that through the power of communities, we recognise that the strength is here within us, and we can look to those naked men who are running societies and running communities, call out what we see, and together disrupt and lead and support each other. So I'm all about finding a few more gobby, disruptive kids to lead communities, and I'll be there to support them. Thank you. That's the the end of my time. So I hope some of that was relevant in some way to someone. It's very strange talking virtually to you all. I'm presuming that people are still listening. Right, on to the real kind of interest in all this. I'm also here alongside that to talk to you and to host a discussion with just some incredible speakers that we've got lined up. I'm not going to read their full bios out because I know that can be quite embarrassing, and I know you've got the bios in the pack. So the first speaker I want to introduce is Kim Shutler. Kim, I've said I'm a professional northerner, and I was more than delighted when I started to look at the bios and realise that Kim was our first speaker, because she's actually doing incredible work in my home city of Bradford. Her CV is brilliant, read it in the bio, but I'm going to let her speak for herself about what she's doing in a city that I love. Over to you, Kim.
Thanks, Ruth. And I'm from Manchester as well. Double bonus. Hi, everybody. So my name's Kim. I'm the Chief Exec at the Cellar Trust. We're a mental health charity, so we're based in Bradford. And the other job, the voluntary job that I do, is that I am the chair of the VCS Assembly, which basically means that that I represent our sector in lots of often very boring boards and committees, but really trying to shout on behalf of the sector and everything that we do. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my leadership journey, and it builds, I think, on some of the stuff that Ruth's been saying. So I just wanted to rewind to 6 years ago. It's almost to the day. I had, unlike lots of people probably in the room or in your rooms today, not earned my stripes in the sector. I had spent my whole career working in the public sector in comms and in organisational development jobs, and it was a nice job. It was great. But when it's cheesy, isn't it, to say this, because I think loads of us say this, but there was something missing. It felt like there was something that I could be doing, and I felt that I could do. So I saw this job at the Cellar Trust, and I thought, just bung in an application, and it'll be good experience. Even a good experience to get the interview. And I look back now and I laugh my head off, because I would not have given myself that job. I was new to the sector, I was new to Bradford, I was new to mental health, and I was new to being a chief exec. So you could be asking yourselves, why on earth did they give me that job? But I had bags of passion, like I know we all do, and I had some good transferable skills, and I had a vision, but I had not done 80% of my job before. So how do you survive as a new chief exec with all of that, and how do you survive when you take over a failing organisation, an organisation that's on its knees? So we had a 50% hole in our budget. Our reputation, little sketchy. My staff were really low on morale. We had social enterprises, but they were hemorrhaging money. So if you think about your risk register, mine was red. And I can just tell you that I spent about a week after they offered me the job trying to talk myself out of it, because it was really scary thinking about what if I couldn't do it. And the second thing I would say is my master's in leadership did not help one tiny little bit. So 6 years on, where are we now? So we've almost quadrupled in size now, and that was pretty important for us because of sustainability. But the things that I am more proud of is that we've got national award-winning services. Our outcomes, I think, speak for themselves in terms of the work we do. I'm so proud of my really amazingly motivated, talented team. 90% of my staff are peer support workers with lived experience of mental health problems, and they use those to deliver life-saving services. And I think we do pretty well in terms of a local charity sort of punching above our weight, in terms of our influence. And we, like everybody, we will be touched by COVID, but I think we've weathered the storm and come and are a strong organisation. So the thing that I wanted to share with you in terms of how I did that, and of course all credit to my team, but how I survived that was I operated like a gigantic sponge, and I still do that today. I spend a lot of time in lots of committees and meetings then and boards, and quite often 90% really boring. Often they're not hugely beneficial to the work that I do, but what I do is I use those to sponge. I operate in a way that I look around and I learn from other people, because if you think back to that, and not having done 80% of the job, who has done that? Who out of all the elements that we do as chief execs, which is literally everything, who does know how to do it? Who is the best at doing it? Who's the worst at doing it that you really need to learn not to be like? So I sit in those meetings and I surround myself with brilliance, and I look at how they talk, the languages they use, the data they're interested in, the politics, what makes them tick, what are the big no-nos, and I look at the people who I really wouldn't want to be like as well, and I learn from that as well, and I suck it up like a sponge. So I am really passionate about learning and development, but what I would say hand on heart is, and I say it to all my team, is that this is the type of learning over and above my degree, my master's, that is the way that I learn the best, and I still learn today. So what I would say is, you know, look for your opportunities to be a sponge, you know, and also people love being sponged off. It's a compliment to them, and those might be little things like asking for help, or it might just be observing, but you'd be amazed how generous people are in terms of helping you on your journey. The next bit I just want to, in terms of the next bit, ladders, well, you know, when I joined the VCS, I didn't expect to join the ladder as the chief exec. And it took me a good year to feel comfortable with saying that, without apologising a little bit. But one thing I would say is I would never have joined the ladder. I've never climbed the ladder if it hadn't been for the people who put the ladder down for me. Mostly brilliant, inspiring women, mentors, managers, or people that I didn't really know who were helping me to learn. And I think a lot about the sustainability of our sector and about our organisations. And for me, the future talent and the leadership is at the heart of it. It's our opportunity, but it's our biggest risk. So what I would say to you today is, who can you put the ladder down for? Who can you reach a hand down and give a little helping hand up who might need it? Look for the people who aren't the usual suspects. Look for the people who don't just look like you, who don't just behave like you, because that talent is everywhere in our communities. And sometimes it's just the little things that enable people to take that one step upwards. So I'll leave you today by just saying, use your privilege to be an ally, share your power, create space for other people, and, you know, be the person that people can sponge from. The talent is out there, and, you know, it's so special. Let's nurture it, let's help it shine. And, you know, I really feel that the future of our sector and the amazing work we all do really depends on it. Thank you.
I am there. I'm so sorry. My Wi-Fi froze right at the end, Kim. I was about to say something lovely, and then my Wi-Fi froze. Sorry, the problems have been in rural Yorkshire. That was such a great talk. Thank you. I'm going to come back to you in the Q&A about the sponges and the ladders. I'm going to hand over now to Sarah. We have Sarah Garman here. And I had the very big privilege of visiting Sarah's community a couple of years ago with Virgin Money Foundation. And I genuinely came out of that visit quite changed, and I'd learned so much about how you can transform a community, and the women that I met there on that day have stuck with me, because I just thought they were some of the most fantastic individuals I've met. So I'll let Sarah say a little bit more about them all and her work. Over to you, Sarah.
Great, thank you so much for that introduction. Unleashing the Power of Community sounds like such a glamorous and wonderful title, but I wonder if, like me, sometimes you think that your organisation would run so much easier if it wasn't for the community. I wonder if, like me, you have ever sat crying in your office over volunteers who are now not speaking to each other because something that they've fallen out. over the last 10 years, I could tell you so many stories of getting free tickets for people, of working to establish opportunities for people, and then seeming to cause so much upset in the process. And maybe I'm alone in this. I can't see your faces. So maybe right now you're shaking your heads and thinking she must be incredibly incompetent. But if actually you are somebody who is nodding and thinking, yeah, I know what she means, then this talk is for you. This is Edberts House. This is our first community house in the middle of a statistically disadvantaged estate. And this is our second. We have 4 main projects. Here's Larkspur House, which we recently launched, a multi-agency project. And then we have our community linking project. We work with 29 GP surgeries now across the whole of Gateshead, supporting folk. And our focus is on building happier, healthier, friendly communities by building connection. We think connection is so important. Connecting people to support, connecting people to one another, and connecting people for community change. And how do we do that? Well, actually, in our communities, there are a lot of services that are interventional or transactional. They do stuff to people. They want to help them. They don't actually want to be with them. They just want to do stuff to people. Actually, we want to build relationships. And I know out there, I'm speaking to lots of folk who really understand that. Our community organisations are there without agenda, building relationships for people. And some of the folk that we work with, actually the only relationships they have are people who are paid to work with them and help them. But actually there's something so important about connecting our communities together to build those peer relationships. And we are an incredibly important source of health and well-being in our communities, all of our organisations. And that's because connection builds control. We need to understand how incredibly powerful that is, that sense of control, because in that best sense, in building that sense of empowerment in our local people, and you can start to make really good decisions about your life, not being done to, but actually to find your own voice. Here's one of my heroes, Michael Marmot. I don't know if you know him. He's a professor based in London. He has been studying this stuff for many decades now. And he has found that the biggest factor in tackling health inequalities is not eating 5 a day or exercising more, but actually establishing that sense of control in the heart of people, enabling people to maximise their capabilities and having control over their own lives. And that is exactly what community groups like yours and mine are doing every day. And we need to reflect on this, because actually what it means is the work we're doing is not only improving the quality of people's lives, but it's improving the length of their lives. Actually, people are living longer because of what we are doing. And this is such an exciting concept on those days when you're actually feeling a bit low. Lots of our community work has built that really positive sense of control, and we were really proud to be named as an example of good practice in the latest Marmot review this year. Here's some of our folks in one of our social enterprise sessions. But you know, those angry, negative, critical people still remain, that I mentioned at the beginning. Volunteers falling out, people only interested in seemingly in what was in it for them. And I don't know about you, but actually in our community work, building community connection and control, it's not easy. It's very difficult. We know it's important, and I watched the toll as well that it was taking on my team. Really good people, passionate people who cared about people, but the constant negativity and the conflict that they were coming up against was really draining to them. And the idyllic notion that most community development is built on is that people will come together and they will listen to one another and they'll seek to work together for the common good. But this often seemed quite a long way, really, from the experience, the actual experience that we were having. And it was when I was unexpectedly became a foster parent a few years ago that I started to reflect on this a bit more. And my foster daughter had suffered a decade of neglect and difficulties with love and care and nurture. And when I started to try and help her, to show her that love and care, she reacted angrily and often aggressively. And I had 4 children of my own, so I was no stranger to parenting, but I just found that reasoning and negotiating with my own children was fine, but actually in this new situation was futile. And it got me really thinking, because I was pretty exhausted and I was pretty confused, and I started to read about childhood development, and I became fascinated with the physical development of the brain and how the impact of negative experiences starts to impact on brain development. I'm still very much a beginner in this area, so if there are psychologists listening, then I apologise in advance, and they can correct me afterwards. But the extremely complicated system of neurons within our brain is actually formed by the love and care and nurture that we receive when we are young. And actually, that's how our brain develops. It's a bit like a Jenga building blocks actually in our life. And actually, when it's well constructed, it's a safe and secure tower. But conversely, without that love and care, this development doesn't happen. And actually, people really struggle to feel empathy and to build connection. They learn that actually relying and cooperating on other people is really not helpful because caregivers and others can't be trusted. So people grow up with some of those building blocks missing, and actually they're really struggling to empathise or to trust. And as I listened to people's stories in our communities, I started to realise that they shared so many similarities actually with my foster daughter. And the traditional ideas of community development work just didn't really work because of really what they had experienced. So this year has been an exciting journey for us as we became committed to understanding more about that and really creating a psychologically informed environment within our projects to equip my team to work more effectively with people. So not only did we link with a counselling charity so that people could get the specialist help that they needed, we also started to work with Thrive, who are generally an educational tool, to understand how we could work more effectively with those who were struggling with attachment and developmental disorders. One of the findings, and one of the really exciting findings for today, is that actually, I didn't discover it today before you think that, but the learning that I've discovered now around the neuroplasticity, so this ability for the brain to actually rewire and reconnect is so exciting. And actually, although expert help is needed with that, actually the day-to-day repetitive actions within that are so vital. In our communities, when we are meeting people day in, day out, the small things that we do, the small repetitive things that we do can start to rewire people's brains and really help them in their own lives to regulate their emotions. The simple action of saying to somebody, I'm so delighted to see you, I love it when you come here, again and again in our community settings, however hard it is, will really help people start to build those developmental blocks that they need to find their voice and take control of their lives. And it's also so refreshing for staff as well. It builds their resilience and their understanding that actually the anger and other things that are coming towards them is not personal. Organisations like ours hold in our hands the ability to do some amazing things, not only to build control in the community, which would help people live for longer, but also actually the opportunity to rewire some of those developmental building blocks and actually change people's lives. And in this way, we will unleash a new power in our communities, both in individuals and in the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That's absolutely fascinating stuff. We're going to dig into it in the Q&A. I'm also a foster parent, so I heard a lot of what you were saying there. You know, that those pathways we need to look at. It's not about just the individual. We've got whole communities that are missing some of those pathways, and we have to help them rebuild them. Okay, our final speaker of the Fab 3 is Baz. Baz, I have not met you yet, but I've spoken to people who have met you, and they uniformly tell me about the deep impact that your work is having on some of the young people that need it the most. So I'm going to hand over to you to speak to us all now. Welcome, Baz.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Marcellus Baz. I'm the Chief Executive of Switch Up and Managing Director of Nottingham School of Boxing. Both organisations today are recognised internationally and nationally for the work that we're doing. But it didn't start off like that. It started off from a place of pain and struggle. And it goes back to my own life of growing up in a deprived area in the meadows that didn't have a lot of opportunities. I grew up in a big family with an absent father, and my mum was suffering from severe mental health issues to the point where she tried to kill herself numerous times in front of us as young kids. And there's been times where she lined us up and she was going to kill us all by throwing us over a river, but we didn't understand all that at that time. It was just this crazy trauma, and we didn't have no one to talk to, and we didn't have no support. and going to school and trying to sit there and learn about maths when you know that you could be at home and you could probably, somebody could end up dying. It wasn't a very good place to be able to sit in, and because of my behavior, I got excluded from school. So from that, when I was in that environment, I wanted to get out of that environment, and I wanted to just get away from it. And by being out on the streets, I got pulled into criminality, I got groomed, I got exploited. At a very young age, I was moving, Class A drugs and guns and things like that around. And whilst I was in that kind of lifestyle, I seen a close friend of mine, two close friends. One of them, they had an altercation, and one of them stabbed the other one. And, him dying in my arms and seeing the light come out really hit me in a way that I didn't know. At that time, I didn't know about therapy or nothing. And my other friend gets sent down for murder. So within a matter of minutes, there's this community trauma, this plague going right the way through my community, to the people that were at school with them, to the shopkeeper, to everybody. Hundreds of people were impacted by it. And then that trauma became like a disease. It broke families up. It got people hooked on substance misuse, all kinds of things. And I wanted to make a change. I wanted to get out, but I didn't know how to. And I was caught up in a vicious cycle of trying to get out, couldn't get out. Having a criminal record were like shackles to try and integrate into society, but I always wanted a way out. And for me, boxing was a great way out, because I can remember running away from police and running into a boxing gym and opening the doors, and there was, a really inclusive environment. It was like class, race, religion, everything was dissolved. People were there to, really to help you, to support you, to encourage you, and actually inspire you. That was the first time I mixed with people from different disciplines, middle-class people that didn't have to carry knives or guns, or didn't have to worry about police kicking down their doors. So from that, I pursued and got offered a professional contract. I came back to Nottingham. I met people that were from a different rival gang. I got attacked with a machete. Luckily, for me, I got attacked in my hands by putting my hands up. It went through my hands, and I actually bled to the point where my heart stopped for a minute and I was dead. I got brought back by the NHS. And at that particular time, I had to make a decision. And, I'm really putting this very quickly, in 7 minutes. So I'm missing out quite a lot of things. So from there, I tried to change my life. I couldn't get back into boxing. My injury was too severe. So I started volunteering. And from volunteering, I proved myself that I was the first one there, the last one out. And I ended up getting a job from a word of mouth, not from an interview. It was word of mouth that, this kid is trying hard. He wants to try and, make an honest living of himself. And whilst I got a job at a leisure centre, and from within 9 months, I ended up becoming a manager. Whilst I was a manager, I realised that there was young people in my community coming into that place that were like me several years ago, suffering from childhood adverse trauma, suffering from, disorganized detachments, suffering from isolation, exploitation, inequalities, different forms of abuse, mental health issues. So I decided to set something up that replicated the environment that saved me. But what was missing from that, so I set up a boxing gym with a pair of pads and gloves, and it started to grow. People from all over Nottingham started to attend, and I could relate to them. I could understand them. I could realize where they needed the support. But what was missing was that positive role model, that father figure or that mother figure, that a lot of them were missing. So I set up a different organization, Switch Up, and that's how the birth of Switch Up and Nottingham School of Boxing came about. So Switch Up would support young people and their families with positive male role models or female role models to give them that father figure, that mother figure, that guidance. We also started to provide counseling with people that could relate to these young people to be able to deal with that trauma and be able to put it away, so that they can develop coping mechanisms and support networks in case they relapse. We also started to run alternative education to help young people to be able to read and write, which a lot of, including myself, couldn't do at an age of 18. So, and then after that, we started to do employability skills. And now what we do is we use that model, which is a model that really works. And we transition young people from, difficult, marginalized backgrounds into employment training and education. And this model has now been picked up. I've developed the model and I've set it up in LA, in Brazil. I've supported the Prime Minister of Norway around violence intervention and extremism programs, and we've set it up in Norway. I'm currently an advisor to the Home Office and support numerous organisations across the UK and nationally around urban youth violence and interventions, early interventions to be implemented within schools to try and support marginalised young people and their families to be able to reach their true potential in life. And for me, I just want to leave you with one thing very quickly is, don't just inspire to make a living, inspire to make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paz. That was fantastic. I was engaged all the way through, and I know there's so many young people that I wish could listen to what you just said. But I love the way you just switched that for them. The talk was going along and you're like, in Brazil, in Norway, I was not expecting that. That was the twist at the end. So I'm so glad that the work you've done in Nottingham is now being seen kind of globally, not just in the UK. So
I wanted to say, I've got support from people like John, and from other organisations. Like Kim was saying, it's all about learning and being that sponge and picking things up. And Mick McGrath, who works for Locality, is a board member. So he's been inspirational in helping us with our governance and things like that. So I couldn't have done it without people. So, I'm truly grateful and honoured and blessed to be here to share this with you guys.
Well, that's a seamless link back to what Kim was saying at the start about be a ladder and help other people up. Okay, now I have another screen here. I have two screens and I can see questions arriving. There are many questions and comments from the people who are watching, but we don't have much time. But I've been assured by Locality that we'll get through a couple of questions and then that they will strive to answer anything that's still left unanswered at the end of our time. So I'm now going to put a question to the panelists. I'm going to ask if you can be quite brief in your answers because we've not got much time. And honestly, there's about 20 questions sat there. So I'm going to get through what I can. So as quick as you can in your response. And if there's something that you don't feel you need to respond because someone else has said it, that's fine. Let's keep it moving. Okay. So the first question I wanted to put to you is one of my own. Why not? And it was, what has this year maybe taught you to do differently? So it's such a strange year for everyone. Is there anything that you think, actually, I'm going to do that differently now when working with my community? Okay, Kim, first.
I'm just going to be dead honest and say that this has been a massive learning curve for me. So, I run a mental health charity, but we're not a community development organisation, but it being part of the COVID response as part of my chair's role has meant that I've had the opportunity to spend a lot more time with grassroots organisations and the people across Bradford, and it's just been unbelievably eye-opening for me. And and actually I feel a little bit embarrassed that I hadn't known some of those things before. So it's been huge, and a huge privilege to see how our communities have mobilised throughout this pandemic.
Thanks, Kim. Anyone else want to answer that? Sarah?
Sarah, sorry. You can go if you want, Sarah. I can go last.
I was just going to say something really practical, which is really around technology and using digital stuff, because I was actually the world's worst person at using any kind of technology at all. So just the fact that I'm on Zoom is a massive change for me, and I think we're trying to use that as well across our communities more, trying to support people and so on. So that I think that's been a change and what's something that will last and will stay.
Yeah, I think for me, it's about improvising and innovating and looking at, talking to our community and looking at what the needs were from our community and how can we service them needs. And for us, we made that transition to remote working online. So we provided counselling online, mentoring online, face-to-face, socially distanced work. And one of the things that really came through was food poverty and IT poverty that we had to address. So we, all of our guys kind of transformed from some of the day-to-day things, and we were out fundraising money and actually getting food parcels out, but making sure we hit the gaps, not duplicating what the statutory services are doing at the moment, but actually hitting the gaps by working with local schools to look at vulnerable parents and families that really need that support. So and we're having to do that now. So now we're working at a scale. So, when we go into lockdown, we can go remote, social distance, and look at food parcels and supplying people with IT equipment to be able to help them to be able to interact and get out of isolation. And then as the restrictions ease, then we can go back into face-to-face group working and all the rest of it. But it's absolutely imperative to try to improvise, because, I'm sure Kim knows mental health at the minute is going through the roof. Our communities are, struggling, and we, as community leaders, as people that we're blessed with a platform to help people, we really need to stand up and be counted.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go to the questions here, but just everyone bear in mind we've only got a few minutes, so I'm going to try and get through as many as I can. So I'm going to limit you all to 40-second responses each. The first question here, it says, it's something I've talked before about imposter syndrome, but someone's put here, I lost a lot of working class and BME and other minority communities say this. And what would you say a solution might be to imposter syndrome, either your own or people you've supported or mentored through it?
Yeah. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
First. Yeah, for me, absolutely. I mean, I've just recently become a fellow for Acumen and stuff, and I definitely felt an imposter syndrome. I've come from the streets. I've not got a degree, but then what I do is I take myself back to what my purpose is, what my calling is. I'm a man. I've got, good intentions. I want to make a difference, and I'm making a difference. So I've got to kind of look at a gratitude journal and kind of make myself realize that I'm actually doing good, and I need to carry on doing good, and I've developed other people and I need to carry on developing. But the gratitude journal definitely helps to empower you, and it's all in your mind, you know what I mean? And I believe God made us all equal, and we just need to believe in ourselves, and we all come with a purpose.
Thank you so much. Okay, either Kim or put your hand up if you want to answer this one, Kim or Sarah. Kim, yeah, go for it.
I mean, I think my talk probably talked quite a lot about that. I felt imposter syndrome coming to talk today. I tried to get out of it, frankly, because I like talking about my work. I don't like talking about myself and being held up as an example of inspiring. I think it's difficult. I think we all feel it, and I think by other people talking about the fact that we all feel it makes it a little bit more normal. Because people probably think that I'm full of bags of confidence, and I think just encourage other people to because actually the thing that can help you with your imposter syndrome is other people just giving you that hand up or the little bit of a it's okay, a bit of reassurance. So who can you do that for, to help other people with their imposter syndrome?
Thank you. And Sarah, I saw you nodding there, Sarah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's something that's dogged me all my life, really, and firstly, I think part of the answer is that it's a bit of a cheesy phrase, but feel the fear and do it anyway. Go for it, because as you step out and you have more experience, you sit in these meetings and you feel nervous to open your mouth, but when actually you listen to what some other people are saying, you think actually I've got something more sensible than that to say right now. And the other thing actually someone pointed out to me, which I found really helpful, is that actually imposter syndrome is often about those people who are very good at their job, because they can see the gaps. They know that there's things that they can improve. They know that there's things that are going to be better. They're the things that make us feel insecure. They drive us to be really good leaders. People who don't struggle with imposter syndrome are sometimes those who are not self-aware enough to realise that actually there's lots of things they could do better. So I like to try and interpret it like that anyway.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I feel there's some people leading things who need to have a little bit more imposter syndrome, but that's a different conference. Right. So, okay, next question. How do risk-averse organisations or people get over their fear of being disruptive? Good question, whoever asked that. I love that.
Can you just repeat that, please?
Yeah. How do risk-averse people or risk-averse organisations get over their fear of being seen as disruptive? Because in some ways, all of you have had to disrupt in order to create some success in what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind going first if you want, if you guys are okay with that. Yeah. I think for me, I think it was very much about having a fact-based argument if you're going to be doing that in a polite way, and talking about potential case studies, showing impact of how your model is actually working and how much of a difference it can be making. I wouldn't go in there without any kind of facts or evidence or impact reports or something in a way where you can back up what you're saying, because for me, with the imposter syndrome and all the rest of it, and being put down all my life, the last thing I want to do is say, look, we need to change this. They're going to think, well, who are you? But when I had certain bits of evidence and I had impact reports and a model that I could show that works, then I've got a meaningful way of trying to put that across in a polite way, and also making sure that you have some really good allies around you that actually buy into what you're doing and will support you in positions of power.
Thank you, Baz. Okay, we've literally got 1 minute left, so I'm going to give you 30 seconds each, Sarah and Kim. Sarah first.
I think we have generally taken a collaborative and a partnership building approach and tried to add value. But sometimes I think, we just have to stick to our guns. If we think actually that something is really important, that it's going to benefit our communities, we have to crack on and make it happen. And actually, generally, I've found that as time goes by, people come on board with the fact that actually it was probably a good idea in the first place. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Agreed. Kim?
I suppose what I remember is, from a psychological perspective, no one likes being shouted at. So you can, my style of disruption is very, very challenging, but a challenge from the inside. I build the allies and the relationships to be able to influence. And sometimes that's controversial in our sector, to be seen as, too in bed with, whatever. But I find that if people trust you and recognise your expertise, they listen better, and you can put in a much better challenge.
Thank you. There's someone who's asked a question here to our speakers. As a single parent, how do you create the right work-life balance? And me and that person just need to go for a coffee, a very tired coffee. And, as someone who's been up since 4 a.m., I don't have the answers to that. And whoever does have the answers, please see me on Twitter later. Right, listen, just to say, speakers have been fantastic. I'm feeling pretty revived. I'm so sorry we didn't get through all the questions, but there's so many fantastic questions there. But I hope you've had a great conference, and it's been just a really lovely time together. So thank you very much to Baz, to Sarah, and to Kim. Thank you. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you so much for all of the speakers. That was such an amazing session. And like all of the sessions, we just wish they'd gone on for another hour, because we could have had such rich conversation there. But such amazing speakers, really kind of got loads of examples about the true meaning of the power of community, I think, in everything that all of those speakers said. So really appreciate your contributions, and thank you so much. So it's a sad moment. It's coming to the end of our very first unconvention. And if I'm honest, I really hope it's our last unconvention. I'd rather have face-to-face experiences with everybody next year. That sounded a bit odd. I'd rather see you all next year in person. It's been really, really good. I've found it so enjoyable. It's been absolutely lovely to see you all, to talk to you on Zoom, even if not in person. So I hope you feel that you've managed to do what I hoped we would do when I kicked off this convention yesterday, which is get some motivation, get some inspiration, and learn and support each other. So hopefully you've felt that, even though it's been very unconventional this year. I've got a couple of bits of housekeeping things to announce, some exciting news in the next kind of couple of minutes. So, as you know, we had a winner prize competition on the platform, and you can have a look on the leaderboard if you wish, as I am speaking. And we have the results. So, I'm happy to announce in third place, winning a £25 gift voucher for John Lewis, and I'm sure you're all doing game show oohs in your chairs at home, is Graham Minot from Headton Bridge Community Association, so congrats, Graham. In second place, winning a £50 John Lewis gift voucher, that's Jane from Burn Avenue Trust. Well done, Jane. And in first place, it's actually the treasurer of Locality, winning £100 of John Lewis gift vouchers, is Andrea Mennell from Goodwin Development Trust. So congrats, Andrea. So hopefully that helps your Christmas shopping. Well done to everybody. And thank you for everybody taking part in all of the challenges and answering all of the questions. Some of them are quite hard, but some of them are quite easy. So well done to everybody. So a list of thank yous. I'd like to thank all of our supporters and sponsors who, as I said, made this event possible. The headline supporter, Power to Change, who played a really important part in putting this on, and our supporters, Virgin Money Foundation, National Lottery Community Fund, and our sponsors, NatWest, Ensley, Anthony Collins, Good Finance, Charity Bank, and Wrigley's. We really appreciate the support that you've given us, and for many of those organisations have given us support to put conventions on over many years. I'd like to thank you and all of our members. It is a real privilege. We've been talking about privilege a lot, and it really is a privilege to have my role and work with so many fantastic organisations, see the work that you do on a day-to-day basis, try and understand and represent you as much as I and we can at Locality. This year has been really tough. Next year is also going to be tough. I think the great thing about this network, though, is that everybody is so generous about supporting each other, looking out for each other, and that has come through in spades the last couple of days. So, you know, at Locality's end, we've got your back. We will do everything we can to continue to support you, to represent you. Please engage with us over the coming months so that we can all support each other. I'd also like to thank everybody who's been to convention or unconvention for the first time, all of our guests who are outside of membership. We hope you enjoyed your time with us and learned something new. And of course, we would love you to be part of our network. So do take a look at joining our network and being part of this fantastic movement. Do get in touch with us if you have any questions, anything we can help you with. As you know, this convention is free. We decided to put it on at no cost to members. For non-members who've taken part, you're very welcome. We're also, though, asking people to make a voluntary donation if you are able. So if you look out for the email we'll be sending post-event and you would like to make a donation, we'd of course be extremely grateful for that support. In that email everyone will be receiving as well, there is a feedback form. We really want to get your feedback, so please let us know how you felt this event has gone, and we can constantly improve things we do and make sure that we're doing the right kind of things that support you. So feel free to log any of the comments, have a play around with the platform. The on-demand feature is going to be there for 6 months, so you can watch again and again, and some of the videos that have been filmed over the last 2 days of the plenary sessions are going to be put up there over the next few days, so do check up and have a look, speak to each other on the social wall, etc. I'd like to thank Mark Law, who, as you'll know if you came to the AGM this morning, is stepped down this morning from being the chair of the Locality board. A massive thank you to Mark for all that he's done for us. A big thank you to all of the board as well for being so supportive, committed to the organisation and to this whole movement. I'd like to also say a special thank you to 2 of our members of staff who are going to be moving on. And I'm going to do that because they are 2 of our members of staff that are most well known across the membership. So a lot of you, particularly in Yorkshire, will know Sophie Michelena. She's going to be leaving us in the next few weeks to move back to her hometown in France. She's been an absolute star in Locality for many years. She's really provided absolute cast iron support to members throughout that time, and we're really going to miss her and wish her well. And the other person that's leaving is the legend that is Hugh Rolo. who's been with us for so long. He's our longest serving member of staff. He predates the organisation. Many of you will know him from the old DTA days. Hugh has been an absolute dynamo, driving force of so much that we've done across this movement for a couple of decades and more. He's such a great presence in the organisation. He has supported so many members, helped set things up, and we are really, really, really going to miss him as part of the organisation. But we're not really going to let him go. Even in retirement, he's still going to be part of the family. But I just wanted to express my thanks to both those members of staff as well. And a huge thank you to all of the Locality staff team for putting this event on. It's a really great thing because it's a whole organisational effort that everyone works together, putting on workshops, doing the tech, doing the promotion, doing the marketing, working out the programme, briefing, etc., so much on. But a particular thank you to the people who've really worked and pulled out all the stops over the last few weeks, Danielle, Jenny, Trish and Sarah. We're going to have a celebration event with our staff team, but a real acknowledgement to them for all the amazing work that they've done to make this almost seamless. It feels it's so run so smoothly. So it's been really great, and thank you for all of that. So don't be a stranger. Keep unlocking the power of community. Keep engaging with us, and hopefully we'll see you in person in Birmingham next November. So thank you, and have a good evening.